When we talk about, we'll be very focused on BirdDog e-commerce today, but at the end of the day, BirdDog is really a platform that sits on top of Macola. And so, so if you're used to dealing with other e-commerce products out there that that might integrate with your ERP system, what they typically say is that they're going to integrate, with your ERP system. What they really mean is that they're going to import-export to your ERP system. And so they're going to have a set of customer databases, and they're going to push that into yours, and they're going to suck their back out, and you're going to suck your items out and your pricing out, and then they're going to push orders back in. And so that's not how we work. We don't do that when we're dealing with Macola Progression and Macola ES and EM10. We literally sit on top of Macola. And so when we talk about BirdDog customers, what we mean is Macola customers. When we talk about BirdDog pricing, what we mean is Macola pricing. And account balances and production orders, inventory, all of those things come out of Macola. And so what we've done is we've actually added extra tables into Macola to store all of the data that we need that Macola doesn't have a place for. So, for example, we use the item table right out of Macola. So when you say an item number, people ask, well, how do I get my items imported into BirdDog? Done. They're just there. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to go build a website. So we're going to build a structure, and we will apply items or import items to particular pages. But as far as saying, how do I get them to where I can see them in BirdDog? Well, you don't. You just turn it on and you do a search for items, and oh, there's all my items. Yeah, they're all just there. And so because we're using that. But on the flip side, if we need pictures or we need a beautiful big long description or a lot of custom fields, all of that stuff is stored in support tables that set inside of your Macola table. And so many of our customers, even ones that don't do e-commerce, actually use our product as basically as a product management tool, because we're so robust in the amount of data that you can store in our system, is that you literally can have a single repository of data. And so many of our customers would have, they have their Macola system, and then they have this other place where they have pictures on the item, and they have links to CAD drawings, and they have, all of an Excel sheet with, just columns and columns of specifications for a particular item. Our system actually handles all of that natively. And so you can literally move all of this into a single database. You can access it then with our web interface, or because of the fact that it's setting in the Macola database, your reseller can actually write crystal reports, or you can access it with Excel, anything in there, because it's all in the same database. And so it makes a very sophisticated product management system as well. DCS is one of our longtime customers. This is one that we actually originally implemented role-based security for customers, because this was the one with 3 divisions. So they've been growing. They've been acquiring. What was going on is they're acquiring businesses in different locations throughout the nation. And as they acquired those, what was basically previously a competitor, they didn't want those people coming in from those systems to be able to access their internal data. And so all of them run BirdDog customer service, which gives them access to just their data. And so they sell print cartridges. If you ever need a print cartridge for that, this is a system. They actually built this. They have a web person on staff, and so with BirdDog e-commerce, BirdDog can do all of the web development for you. If you happen to have people on staff that know how to do that, they actually want tighter control of it. They want to control the releases and the updates to the look and feel of the website. That you can do that. This is a company out of Dallas, Texas that we work with. We've been working with them, I think, since 2005. And when they came to us, they sell meat. Yeah, it's actually quite lovely what they sell. And so I love visiting there because they always send me home with a box of steaks. And so, do you guys have Outback Steakhouse up here? Carrabba's, those kind of things? Okay, so you have went to a restaurant that uses our software. Oh. Because every Outback Steakhouse or Carrabba's or about 6 other restaurants in the nation orders from Standard Meat. There's the exclusive supplier to those steakhouses. And the issue that they have is that, and I think we have a good. Yes, this is the. If you've ever eaten here, you have ordered steak that was purchased across BirdDog software, and this is one of my favorite quotes. Everybody knows vitamins are very important.
Yes.
And so what we deal with is, I think with Outback Steakhouse alone, we have 12 to 1,500 restaurants in the United States. And so they're all ordering steak. But the interesting thing is that steak in Oklahoma and in Texas is bigger than it is in New York. And so what I learned when we went in there was that it's not just, okay, well, it's the East Coast is one size and the Central United States is another and the West Coast. It was like every single restaurant was a little bit different. And so this is an example of a screen that we built and this is an example of a custom screen. This is not standard BirdDog, but gives you an idea of what we do when we need to. And so basically this list right here, you actually go to quick order. What happens is using roles and permissions, the system knows what store the user that just logged in is associated with, and only the items that they have access to are listed here. This page actually has literally thousands of items on it, but it's being filtered by the roles and permissions of the person that's currently logged in. And so every store has less than 20 that they actually have access to. And so that's the first part, is that we're limiting it to just what that store is authorized to purchase. And so that's key, because they have a menu. They can't buy stuff that's not on their menu, and the menus are store specific. And so that's the first thing that we do. The second thing that we do is that in the restaurant business, it's number one, it's kind of trendy, and so we're actually doing using some back-end processes and Microsoft analytical services. We're actually doing analysis on what they've purchased over the last 4 weeks. And so that is actually a display of how many units of this particular product have you ordered over the last 4 weeks. And then to deal with seasonal issues like Valentine's is next week, when they order an enormous amount of steak, we'll actually show this week last year, just to give them a sneak peek into what did you do this week last year. And so all of that's basically all here on this order entry system. And so the other fun part of this is that from a performance standpoint, every one of those stores has to order from basically Friday morning until noon on Monday. That's their order window. And so when do they all order? Does anybody have a guess?
Yeah, Sunday night?
Yeah, no, 11 a.m. on Monday morning.
So they all order.
Yeah, so this web server picks its nose 6.5 days a week, and from about Monday 8 o'clock you can see it go woo, just like that. And so so when people ask, well, can you handle a lot of load, we can answer yes. Yes, absolutely we can, because we've watched it. Yeah, and so they get just a ton of orders right there on Monday. So this side I hate working on right before lunch. So because when you log in, actually let me go back. That I didn't actually do that. You'll notice that I'm logged in here. Notice what it says right here, Outback Steakhouse. And so they basically have another piece that we have is a concept of themes. And so this system, when you log in, actually knows what restaurant chain you're associated with, and the whole website changes its look and feel to match the website that you logged in with. And so this particular one is an Outback Steakhouse, but if I logged in as Carrabba's or Bonefish, there'd be fish across the top. Carrabba's, I think, is Italian. I'd have Italian food across the top. And so the site actually knows who you are, not only what I have access to, but what the look and feel of this is. And so this works really well in a themed restaurant. The other place that it can do is if you happen to from a go-to-market strategy, you have different audiences and you use different site URLs for that. So I have my B2B site that's specifically aimed at distribution, and then I have my retail, here's how I talk about my product. And we've had customers that did that where they don't sell to the public, but they need a site where the public can come and get data about it so that they'll go back and buy from their distributors. And so we'll set up 2 different URLs. They have completely different looks, different look and feel, different access. Besides filtering what items, the permission system also is more granular than even view. There's like 6 different permissions about, can I view this, can I buy it, can I search for it on the website, and so we use that to control who has access to what at a very small level if we need to. Patty, if you're familiar with Scuba, Patty is really one of our large worldwide customers, and so this is one where we've had to deal with very interesting, to say the least, shipping rules. You said you worked with Link.
Yeah.
And so Link handles them in the UK.
Yep.
So they're the reseller that we work with when we're dealing with the UK.
Yeah.
And they have very, European tax rules are different. They have VAT that you have to deal with. And so that's one of the things that we were able to do for Patty is they actually run in 4 different databases at this point. Originally it was 5. And every one of those databases has its own shipping rules, has its own tax requirements. They actually have different currencies that they run in, some of them more than one. And we can handle that kind of flexibility if we need to. And so Patty's a great one for, I need something weird. Can you do this weird thing? But only in Australia. We don't mess with the Americas. We want to leave that alone. And so,
Highlighting on your toes.
They absolutely do. Yeah, we're actually going through a big upgrade with them. They're also one that gives an idea of stability, and so we're in the process right now of upgrading them from version 7 of our product to version 9.8.1. So they, from a support standpoint, we typically don't move them very often because their implementation is so large.
Right.
So
yeah, I remember them.
Yeah. They're,
How was that exact?
Yes. Yeah. So you had Sharon yell at you.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I like
Once.
yeah. That's the way that goes. But yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful website. And so that's just an idea of what we have to deal with worldwide. And it's just weird stuff like the Canary Islands, which belongs to France, and unless you're in the Canary Islands and then you don't think it does. And so there's all kinds of weird things that we, one of some of the advances that we did for them, we originally, when we built our product, we had a list of countries and states/provinces that was hard-coded into the system. Patty was who made that customizable. Because not everybody agrees on what province belongs to what country. That gets kind of weird in parts of the world, I discovered. And so so now you can say whatever, this state belongs to whoever you want. You just go in and tell it. So it's quite fascinating. This is another example. I mentioned McDonald's earlier, Vox printing. If you've ever eaten at McDonald's, when you were handed your tray, it was sitting on top of a tray liner. That sits on top of that. That came out of Oklahoma City from Vox Printing. So they print all tray liners for all the McDonald's in the United States. And McDonald's is a horrible taskmaster. Believe it or not, they actually tell you what you're going to do. I know you can't imagine that, but they do. And so Vox, when they originally bought our product, it was for e-commerce. And we deployed it for all of the corporate chains, corporate-owned McDonald's, and the privately held, the franchisees. And they all just ordered on the web. And I think it was within 2 years, McDonald's implemented basically a procurement system that needed direct access into the website. This is one of our CXML customers. And so they utilize CXML. All McDonald's corporate logs into a procurement system. They literally pick Vox. When they pick Vox, it does what's called a punch-in, and it leaves the procurement system on the outside frame, and Vox's website is sitting in the center, and they actually browse around and buy things. And when they click checkout, instead of them doing a normal e-commerce checkout, that's where we actually do a punch out, and we hand that shopping cart back to their procurement system, and all of the purchase gets authorized inside of McDonald's procurement system. And when it is okayed by a manager, or it's less than their, how much they have available to spend, or their budget or whatever, at that point, the McDonald's procurement system actually fires it back as a CXML purchase order, and that's when we actually process the order inside of Vox. And so today, I think we're on our 2nd or 3rd version of that, because McDonald's changed which CXML system they used in the middle of the road. And we actually there's actually 2 different systems, one for franchisees and one for McDonald's corporate. And so they're similar, but different. And so so that's just to give you an idea of what we can do from a customizable standpoint. This was actually something we were very proud of. In one of the renditions that we went through, we got the high score of any McDonald's supplier. And so since this time, McDonald's has come back and done another implementation, and now we're actually, I think, one of 2 websites that they still allow to punch in. All the rest of them, you have to actually give the data and it's completely handled by the procurement system.
Wow.
But because of the website and the features that we can do, and it's really specifically this page right here, because we're dealing with print, and so even though we have a SKU for this item, which is this item number here, it's print, and so every single job is actually custom at the end of the day. And so this page here actually gives you an idea of the customization options that we're offering. And so this page is actually completely controlled by Box. So we have basically built a content management system that allows their web manager to completely manage what shows up on every single one of these items, what offers are offered. Does this allow a signature line, because not all their products have a signature line. When we're dealing with if we're buying a tray liner, there's no signature line on a tray liner. But if I'm buying a frequency card, it may have to be signed off on the manager before it's valid. And so just different things like that. Does it have an expiration or not?
Do the design, are they designing it in there?
They're not doing the design. Actually what happens is the marketing department actually assigns the design here. And so the design you get by picking the SKU.
Okay.
And so then, and this one is just showing one. Some of the cards actually have a front and a back, depending on if it's like a frequency card, like buy four, get the fifth one free, those kind of things. So they have those kind of different things. In those cases, we'll actually show both the front and the back. And what they're actually defining is basically the bottom section of the card, where there's a signature and an expiration date. What stores is this valid in? Those kind of things that they're doing that last little bit. The second piece is that what we just looked at is the customizable standard cards. With McDonald's, they also do one-offs all the time. All the stores will actually do, well, I just need this one freaky thing, and it says this because we're doing something with a local McDonald's house. The card or the tray liner needs to say this. And so in that case, what they do is they actually call up and talk to Box customer service, who's using BirdDog customer service, and they will actually enter a quote into Macola using BirdDog customer service, and then give that to the McDonald's manager that they're talking to on the phone. And so that person can then go get that approved. And at this point, what we're dealing with is the pure custom. The dollars are, what we're doing is custom. The quote dollars are custom because it's not a standard SKU. It's very custom, so it's more expensive. And at the point that they approve it, they can actually log back into the site and enter the quote number here, and then check themselves out. So they don't have to go back to the CSR. They can actually do that via the web using the quote number out of Macola that we give them.
So it'll go back and recognize the...
Yep, we actually pick that, we take that quote, we pick it up, and we actually drop it into a shopping cart, and when they check out, we convert that quote into an order. And so it actually processes it all back into Macola. And this is actually now a standard page, so any BirdDog e-commerce can actually use this. It's just one of our layouts. And so this is that quote card automation. So BirdDog customer service has some pretty sophisticated email capabilities where you can do customized email layouts and different things like that to actually fire that off. And for the quote, we'll actually embed a link so they can literally just click and process back, which is awesome when you're dealing with custom quotes, but they need to do credit cards because it keeps you having to take a credit card over the phone. They can use the e-commerce checkout to process the credit card without having to tell everybody that. And so most people would rather do their credit card via the web than over the phone. We talked about responsive web design. This is one of our customers in Southern California. So if you have, if you've been to Evolve, you've seen the video of Ativo implementing Danchuck in Southern California. And this was very interesting. One of the things that some of our customers deal with is an aging customer base, and so their primary product is parts for beautiful cars. If you like 55, 56, 57 Chevys, Danchuck is a major part supplier for that. And so this car right here has actually been completely rebuilt from the ground up using Danchuck parts. And it is gorgeous. I have stood next to that car and slobber coming out of my mouth. It's just a beautiful car. And so you can go get the Dan Chuck catalog and build this car yourself. I think by the time it's done, you only have like $150,000 in it. So it's very inexpensive.
That's not bad.
Yeah, it's very inexpensive. But the interesting thing about that is their customer population is aging, and one of the things that we've heard is what we were originally hearing was, well, our customers are older guys, and they don't like the web, and they're just going to sit at their PC, and that's not true. The older generation is now moved to here. So their kids have gotten tired of being tech support for this nightmare. Yep. And so they've given them one of these. Mm-hmm. And so, and so that's what has happened. Yeah. And so what we have seen is in the older ages, we have seen a massive shift to tablets, specifically because of kids not wanting to do tech support on a PC. And so this gives you an idea of all the devices that we support. At this point, if you haven't been watching, the number of mobile devices have actually passed the number of PCs on the planet. So there's more mobile devices right now, and that will just continue to skyrocket. At one point in time, we really thought, everybody's going to consolidate on the PC, and now what we know is it's device explosion. And so it's everything from an iPhone to a 63-inch TV in your living room can all be potential purchasing devices for your product.
I think it's a challenge too, because you get that thing, and all of a sudden you go, I want to look at this one.
Yes, and you expect it to react to that.
I think something's wrong with my phone because it's not doing that. I'm getting very upset. I turn it, it doesn't turn. So.
Or you have all three going at the same time.
Yeah,
that is absolutely true, and I absolutely have been known to do that. So.
Yeah, you go on one page here and one page there, one page there. Okay, I can do what I want.
Right, and that's one of the things that a lot of people don't realize, especially if you look at the numbers. There's a lot of numbers about the amount of purchases coming off the iPhone, and it's actually relatively small still. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of people go, well, if you look at those purchases, we're still in single digits, and so so it's not that big of a deal. What they miss though is the amount of research being done here, and that number is huge. And so the research that's done here that then drives a purchase here or here is massive. And so if you don't exist here, you may never even get seen here, because that's where they're going to look for you.
That's why Apple, with Apple Pay, that's where they're going to. Okay?
Yes.
Once you're there, now it's comfortable. Now it's a fingerprint.
Yeah.
See, all of a sudden Samsung has Samsung Pay.
Yes.
Guess what?
That's absolutely right.
So it's all the transaction. When you're there, that impulse buy is going to happen now because you're here. You're already here.
Exactly.
Yeah. Who wants to go back home and have to look up on the web?
Yeah.
It's over.
Nobody.
Yeah, and that's all it is now.
Right there.
It actually works pretty well.
Yeah,
it's pretty amazing.
And so it is getting significantly better. And so that's really the key there, is that you can't predict where your customer is going to come from. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that we believe that we do very, very well is transitioning from B2C to B2B. And so if you look at a lot of B2B sites, they're very old and kind of stoogey, is very clunky. But the problem that we're having is that the purchasing agents are getting younger and younger as the rest of us get older and older. It's really what's going on. And they are used to buying from Amazon. Mm-hmm. And so just because they're buying from your company doesn't mean that their expectations are any less than what they're used to buying on a regular basis. And so that's one of the other things that we will provide with this platform, is the ability to transition seamlessly using the same software and the same URL from B2C to B2B, based upon look and feel, roles and permissions, what they have access to, what they don't have access to. And so we can do that for not only items. We're talking e-commerce, so you think, we're talking items and what I can buy. But this also applies to content. And so, if you have distribution channels that need access to, documentation or instructional things, we can actually lock all of that down with roles and permissions as well. So they can have, PDF price lists, that kind of thing that is only accessible to distributors or only accessible to my jobbers or this particular A-type customer can see this, but nobody else can. We can do that, not just at the item level, but at the content level as well. Sportsmith is a company that I've been working with since the 90s. They do health equipment parts. And so if you've ever been to a YMCA or a tin gym or any of those kind of facilities, you have probably worked on a machine that has a part from Sportsmith. So they're one of the largest suppliers in this market space. When I originally, going back to that time frame in 2000, when I originally built the product, this was actually I had about 3 customers that were in my mind. It was like, these customers have a problem that I'm trying to solve, and Sportsmith was one of them. And so historically, they were a catalog-based company. So they spend a lot of money generating printed catalogs and mailing those all over the world. And so over the last 15 plus years, we have been transitioning them from a paper catalog to a web-based catalog company. And so they're also an example of somebody that when we started working with them, were literally a B2B company. And so if you were a consumer, if you had a home product, they absolutely ran you off. And the minute they found out you were somebody at home, they didn't want anything to do with you because you were too expensive. Their cost per order was more than their margin on the order. And so they had no interest in that. And so working with them, we now actually have it to where they will do, they're actually doing a significant amount of business in the B2C space. And are actually expanding into that now, because with the e-commerce and the back-end distribution system, we've actually dropped their order cost, processing dollars per order low enough that the margin on those B2C orders will actually, they actually get some of it. Yeah, this is one of my favorites. Is we talk about BirdDog e-commerce, but we actually are starting to use the term omnichannel. And so when we talk about how we do business, BirdDog, we do e-commerce on the web, but we also do customer service. We also do point of sale. We do CXML. We have order imports that will drive from CSVs or Excel files. And so we're all about how do we get an order into the system in the most efficient way to where we can actually make money at the end of the day. And so this is an example. If you go to www.sportsmith.net, you'll see these are all the product lines that they carry. They have a very, very large product line. Besides the fact that they have a lot of brands, the part count is now, I think, over 100,000, 150,000, something like that we're managing inside of our system. And so the tooling that's required to manage that kind of part database, and so we have lots of imports, so that they don't have to, they're not burning labor hours managing all of this. And so most of these brands will actually give them some type of electronic format for price updates or description updates or any of those kind of things. And so we have automated imports built where they can actually pull that into the system that they do that. Some of them don't. Some of the customers actually just have web portals, and they're like, hey, just go out to our web portal and you can pull the data in. It's like, really? I'm going to log in. And so we've actually built automated systems to log into those web portals and actually rip the data from their web portals and put it into their system. And so depending on what level of sophistication you need, we can definitely do that. This is an example of one of their item pages. They are they're definitely cutting edge when it comes to the web. So they've actually moved out to using CDNs, so they can, the CDNs will actually put the pictures close to you, so to help with speed. All of these views and things are handled by the CDN at this point. It's not managed on site. You'll notice we're pulling a lot of data out of Macola, so we have our price codes, along with if there's any quantity breaks, you'll notice it tells us if it's in stock. And so in their world, if it's in stock or not is a big deal. And so we have multiple things that we've done for them to manage communicating to the customer if the item's in stock and how we're going to handle the back order, and automated emails and things like that for statuses is all built into the system. Here we're talking about our customer service, which is our web-based order entry. This is the customer service main screen. This product came from what we originally built. We started with a web portal, then we built a shopping cart, and then we needed, all of a sudden we're trying to sell stuff, we have to talk about the product, so we built this big product management system that allows you to put in lots of descriptions and fields and pictures and all this content. And so what we saw was our customers that were using the e-commerce product, the CSRs were actually starting to utilize the website as their product database, because it had all of the data, because the marketing department was trying to feed it out to the customers, and so the CSRs were using it. And so what we saw is that they would have the browser open with BirdDog e-commerce on one screen and Macola order entry open in another, and they would be on the phone talking, and then they would copy and paste into Macola. And we were like, ah. So that drove me crazy. So we built BirdDog customer service. So now if you're a CSR, when you click the add to cart button on e-commerce, it literally takes you to an order entry screen instead of taking you to a shopping cart. And so obviously order entry is more significant, more complicated than a shopping cart, because the CSR has access to tons of data that a shopping cart wouldn't. And so that's why they get their own screen. And so another piece of that is that because the issue that we dealt with e-commerce was today when a customer checks out in e-commerce, they expect to know everything at the point that they place the order. So they want to know exactly what's my freight going to be, what's my taxes going to be, what is this actually going to cost me when I'm done. And so the whole concept of, well, let me send you an email and I'll let you know what that freight costs, those days are over. That game doesn't work anymore. And so because of that, we had to build fairly sophisticated freight systems that can actually quote real time using UPS and FedEx, for example, and integrate with the credit card processing. And so since we'd already done that for e-commerce, it was pretty easy to actually put that into the customer service product as well. So you can actually drop these items in, and it'll actually, you'll notice there's a little freight button down here. This is a real-time freight quote that just went out and rated this order inside of Macola to whoever you have chosen to ship it. And currently, you can actually click the view freight information, and it'll show you all the ship via codes and what each one of them is going to cost. We're now actually in the process of deploying a freight shopping screen that you'll be able to get to from there for customers that have multiple locations. And so one of our customers has, they're shipping from 4 geographic locations inside the United States. And so when a customer's on the phone, they're trying to figure out, how can I get it? Sometimes it's fastest, sometimes it's cheapest. And so we're building a screen that you can actually rate. And what it's actually doing is literally cross-joining all the shipping methods to all of your locations to see, here's what it's going to cost and how quickly you can get it from all these locations using all these ship methods. And so then the CSR can pick one, and will actually update the order back with the ship method and the location that they chose to ship from using that freight shopping screen. This is something that I'm very impressed with. I actually just learned this just before Evolve. In the last decade, they have increased 50% in orders, 135% in web sales, but we've actually dropped the number of inbound calls they have, and so that's pretty impressive for the amount of growth they've had, that we're actually seeing a decrease in phone calls with an increase in orders. And so we have been slowly but surely transitioning their customers to the web.
And that also has to do with age and buyers. We were talking about earlier
Yes.
about purchasing guys. My purchasing guy will do everything that he can via web, or that's just the way he is.
Yes.
Somebody else that I know will not do anything other than picking up the phone. So you have 2 different.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the issue is the guy on the web is going to be more efficient long term.
No,
Yeah.
there's no doubt about
Yeah.
it. And that's where, unfortunately, as I say, not unfortunately, it is the way of the world.
Yes.
From a customer portal.
Yeah.
If you don't have it, somebody's going to get turned off, and that's, because it's all going back to Amazon. It
Yeah.
created, You know, we all talk about it and think it's funny, but
Yeah.
we all go to Amazon. We all shop on there.
Absolutely.
I was just shopping this morning for. Remember we're talking about a new projector, right?
Yeah.
In the office.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
and I was exchanging emails with Patrick, and then it's 7:00 in the morning, and I'm going, no, I don't like that one. I like this one, and we're going back, and we're looking at Amazon together. You know.
That's exactly right.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, that's what, Best Buy, that's what I like about Best Buy is it gives me a place to shop and touch and feel the things I'm going to buy on Amazon.
That's true.
So
Never thought about that.
yeah,
Like,
that's,
I'm just going to go look at it
Yeah,
and then
I
I'm going to go
appreciate you
order
guys
online.
displaying all this for me because now I'm going to buy.
Oh,
Yeah.
jeez.
Well, they've realized that.
Yeah, they have. We've talked briefly about credit card processing. Again, credit card processing is huge for the web. You have to be able to authorize it real time. Today we're really talking a lot about e-commerce, but we do, BirdDog has systems that we can put in place to handle all the way from taking of an order, all the way through the processes of picking, shipping, printing the invoice, emailing the invoice if you want, even posting the order in Macola if you need us to. And so a lot of those automations we've got is because of our credit card processing. If you're in an environment where you're doing a lot of credit card sales, the handling of credit cards can be very painful. I should probably plug in at saying, Jeremy, could you give me my bag?
Do you think this would work? I don't know, let's see.
I wouldn't risk it.
No.
Yeah.
Throw that in there
Yeah, I
and
was
he blows
gonna say.
up. All right.
You know these things are smoke activated.
The smoke out.
Yeah, once the smoke comes out, they don't work anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, that probably wouldn't be a good idea.
Yeah, it's bad when the smoke
You
comes
don't have
out.
to worry about it. You have a fire protection guy here in the
Yeah, there we
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
audience, so we'll take care of it. I can detect it and send the signals where it needs to go.
Yeah, but will my laptop work when you're done?
Yeah.
That's not the question. It's about safety right now.
Oh, gotcha. We
It's all
appreciate
about
that.
that.
Yeah,
We'll
yeah.
let it clear out.
Got
We'll let it clear out.
So credit card processing, just to give you an example of some of the efficiencies that we've done, to give you an idea of this is kind of how we think in general, is at BirdDog we're very focused on how do we automate things that we do all the time. And so our position is that if I have a human doing the same thing over and over again, I'm not utilizing the human. And so we don't want to get rid of the human, we want to let the human add value. And so let's let the computer do the repetitive stuff, and let's let the humans think, because that's what they're both best at. And so we had to do credit card processing for e-commerce, but what we came into was, especially if you're in an environment where you have back orders, you're sometimes out of stock, it was painful processing those back orders. And so with our credit card deluxe system, what we can do is actually take an authorization on the front end for just what's in stock. And so all this goes back to, it's kind of like a lot of what we say is very similar to the MRP world, and that is your data has to be accurate. If your data is accurate, we can do all kinds of magic. If your data is not accurate, yeah, it's garbage in, garbage out. And so once you actually get to the point to where your inventory is accurate in Macola, then we can actually process real-time authorizations on the website and only authorize for what's in stock because we know what's going to ship. And so our picking system, when it goes to pick, actually checks to see, is this a credit card customer and do we have an authorization? If it's an original web order, the answer is going to be yes. We'll just print the pick ticket and away it goes. It processes, and then we wait for the goods to show up. At some time, hopefully our purchasing agent does their job. Items show up, we fill back order, which we actually have a fill back order process as well. That's a little bit more sophisticated than what's in Macola. And that order gets filled, it goes to our picking system goes to pick. It looks to see, yep, it's a credit card order. Oh, I don't have an authorization, and it actually reauthorizes real time the order. As long as the credit card's good, it'll pick it. If it doesn't, it throws it on our customer service report for the CSR's sales manager, for example, to go figure out, hey, I need another credit card before you're going to get this. And so we'll literally hold that order and not allow it to pick until we get a good authorization. So that was the second major automation that we did dealing with credit cards. Then the last part that was most painful was the end of day processing of actually getting all those payments back into Macola, validating that everything's right. And so today at Sportsmith, and just to give you an idea, on a busy day, Sportsmith will ship 600, 700, 800 packages in a day. And so they use our integration with UPS World Ship and the FedEx Ship Manager to pull all those tracking numbers back in. And so they're processing orders, shipping all day long. Those systems are, they're actually scanning the order, so that they know, and it's recording the tracking number. And so their end of day process literally is close UPS World Ship, close FedEx, go home. And so once they walk out the door, our system looks and sees what all tracking numbers shipped today, interfaces those using a manifest interface into the system, marks all those orders as selected, prints all the invoices that are set to print, emails all the invoices that are set to email, posts the orders, and then sends shipping confirmations and recalculates all the aging for the accounts receivable. And so that all happens at the end of the day with an automated process. And so that process at Sportsmith used to take, I think when I started there, they would start first thing in the next morning and they would work on it till noon. And so today, it literally, they press the button and they walk out the door and it's completely automated. And so those are the kind of processes that we're looking for whenever we bring on a customer. Is that in many cases it starts with, oh, I need this web-based front end, because my customers need access. But it's always more than that. There's always that other piece of how do I actually automate? It's not just getting the order. I need to automate this all the way through the process so that I'm not increasing sales, but at the same time increasing costs because I'm throwing bodies at it. And so, sometimes you just have to throw bodies at it. But we want to be thinking about it smart and figuring out where are the places that we can automate and make this more efficient. So these are some of the customers that we've shown today. These are some of the big bullet points of what we're talking about. And really it all comes back to the power of integration. And so we think that that's really what BirdDog Ecommerce and BirdDog Enterprise offers over all the many other options that people have, is the fact that when it comes to Macola, we absolutely know Macola. We've been working with Macola since 1991. If you cut us, we're going to bleed Macola. What was that color that we used?
Like a
Maroon. I was thinking that's the word I was looking for. Maroon. We're going to bleed Macola maroon because we've just been doing it a long time. And so everything we're about is how do we make a Macola installation more cost-effective, more sophisticated? How do we get those orders? How do we get more orders? But how do we process those orders as efficiently as possible? And expose data to our customers that they need to see, while at the same time hiding all that data that we don't want them to see. Give the right data to the right person at the right time, and as efficiently as possible. So that is the end of my presentation. Jeremy and I
Good job, Jeremy.
are open for any questions that you might have.
Wow, that was a lot of great information.
Yeah, how's that for
I love
a
that.
fire hose?
Excellent.
Yeah.
Whose dog is it?
He's a model.
His model.
Yeah, he's a model.
I love that dog. He's so cute.
Yeah.
I swear I've seen that caption on the commercial.